Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be discussing something that always goes through my mind every single night, especially when I'm looking through my music library on iTunes. It's something that I like to think about a lot, but I've never really spoken about on the internet, and it's a topic that I'm actually really passionate about, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So for this video, I'm going to take you back 5 years ago. 5 years. Can you believe it? 5 years. I'm going to take you guys 5 years back to 2013. August 18, 2013, Lady Gaga releases Applause, her first single off of ARTPOP, which is this wholly anticipated album. I was about to say highly anticipated, but it was wholly anticipated album, and everybody's been waiting on the edge of their seats for her to release something from this album. Everybody's been so excited. She's been hyping it up quite a lot. So the first single comes up, Applause. It's received pretty well, pretty good reviews, pretty nice acclaim. Then, fast forward to November 11th of 2013, ARTPOP comes out. That isn't well received. It isn't received with pretty good reviews. It isn't received with nice criticism, and a lot of people don't understand it, and a lot of people really can't relate to it, to the music that's out there right now, which is the typical thing for Lady Gaga. But this album is far beyond ahead of its time, and people just can't wrap their heads around it. And I personally think that this album was poorly judged. I think people judged the book by its cover way too harshly on this album, and I truly do believe if this album would be released now in this current day and age, this album would be an even bigger hit than it was before. And in this video, I'm going to demonstrate to you, and I'm going to prove to you that this album was poorly judged and just how much influence this album has had in pop culture as of this day. So if you want to see that, well then keep on watching.
Hi, it's 24 hours later. Yes, it took that long for my camera battery to charge, and it took me that long for me to finally recollect my thoughts and remember what I was talking about and resume this video just with a different top. It's the same scenery, just a different top. But as I was saying, you know, the things that were spoken about in ARTPOP at the time weren't things that were necessarily being spoken about in the music industry, especially within the pop music realm. Not that many people were talking, especially not that many female artists were talking. Well, I say the word artist very loosely because very few women and men in music are artists, but not a lot of women in the music industry spoke in their songs about, you know, domination, about being the dominant in a sexual relationship and having the man conform to submission for once. And that was just something that was never discussed. There was never, you know, a really violent talk about rape and how that feels and how the other person makes you feel. And those two things are key elements to ARTPOP, and those two songs that I just talked about were G.U.Y. and Swine. Songs like that just weren't around in 2013. Now, I think things have taken a turn in the music industry, but they've shifted way too far to the left. And ARTPOP, I think, is that album that's like way too far to the right. But there are elements in both parts that do merge together in the middle, and they do meet and they do, you know, relate to one another. So there definitely are elements to that album that are now being talked about in the music industry, within women, within men. There definitely are those subjects. Especially, I think sex now is an even bigger element to pop music than it was 5 years ago. I mean, sure, yeah, 5 years ago there was definitely a lot of sexual music out there 5 years ago, but not as much as there is now. And I think the songwriters behind all these pop starlets have gotten a lot more smarter and a lot more sneakier, and they know how to hide it very well, kind of like how Gaga would do before. She knew how to hide very well all those innuendos. She knew how to hide very well all of the sexual references, so it took a little while for the general public to understand. And that's definitely one element where the music industry now and ARTPOP merge. I think people called it a flop for two reasons. They called ARTPOP, well, they call it flop, what does they call it? Flop pop or flop art? I don't know. Art flop, there we go. I think people back then would call it art flop because for two reasons. One, in the first week it didn't do as huge as Born This Way did. Born This Way in the first week sales, she sold 1.1 million copies. ARTPOP in the first week sales, she sold 258,000 copies, but worldwide she sold 1.2 million copies. And the other reason and the other element why they called it art flop is because it wasn't music that was relevant back then as it is now. Now, I think if ARTPOP would have been released, to say the least, in 2017, I think it would have been one of her biggest albums to date. I definitely think so, because that heavy EDM sound is everywhere now. I mean, Zed, look at Zed. He's even bigger than he was before, and there's so many more DJs and producers out there who are making music that is loud and ruckus and pop music. So if she would have come out with ARTPOP within this time, it would have been a lot more relevant. It would have been a lot more successful. And I honestly think people judged that book by its cover. I definitely do. I think so. And also on the business aspect, I do think that the marketing for the album was done poorly. I will admit to that. I don't think they had a clear, I don't think her team or her herself had a clear vision of how they wanted to execute the album, especially with the app, because Gaga is notorious for failed promises. I'm gonna say that there. I will admit to that. As a part of her fandom and as a huge fan of hers, I will admit she's full of promises that she doesn't live up to. I will admit to that, and that app was definitely one of them, because at the beginning stages of the ARTPOP era, she hinted at the album quite a lot, to the point where she said that it was gonna last for 5 years. She said that she was gonna keep posting on that app for 5 years, and lo and behold, it's been 5 years later. That app is out of the App Store. You can't even find it in the App Store. I actually still do have it in my iPad. I still do have it in my iPad. Nobody's on it anymore. I don't know why, but I still actually do have it on my iPad. But nobody uses it anymore, and it's gone from the App Store, because I don't think, first of all, she released the album too quickly because of her hip injury that she had. I feel like she felt that she had failed her fans for not releasing an album soon enough, so she executed everything quick, and the vision for what ARTPOP was supposed to be and for what ARTPOP was going to be was faded, and it was lost. And I think that deeply affected the success of the album, that deeply affected the way that people would perceive the album. And I honestly do think if she would have taken a little more time with the album, even if fans would be a little bit angry, I think if she would have taken a little more time with the album, that album could have been one of her biggest albums to date. And whether or not it is her biggest album today, whether or not it is her best album to date in your guys' opinion, I personally believe that it is an album that has had so much influence in pop music from then till now, and it still keeps giving out a lot more influence, and it still has a lot of relevance within pop music because of how because of the sound of the music, and also the lyrical composition of the songs, and also the artistic direction of the album. The album definitely achieved what it wanted to achieve with her reverse Warholian art piece that she wanted to do with the album, and she achieved it. She definitely achieved it. And I do think that if she ever does come back to pop music and she releases something as crazy and as noisy and as loud as ARTPOP, anytime, I'm praying. I think if she does it right, she does the marketing right, she does the promotion right, and she chooses the right songs on the album, I think she could have one of her biggest albums to date. I definitely have faith that she can have it. So that is it for today's video on why ARTPOP has a lot of relevance in the pop music industry now, and also why ARTPOP was badly misjudged as well. So if you did enjoy this video, please make sure to give it a massive thumbs up, or you're dead to me. Subscribe, or you're dead to me. Comment down below, or you're dead to me. But if you do actually do any of these things, hi, nice to meet you. I hope you can stick around, and I will see you tomorrow for another video. Well, actually, yeah, tomorrow for another video. Goodbye.